Hi, everyone, and welcome to Studio Jake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. Thank you so much for joining me today on my live vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture from television to film to anime and so much more. We've got a lot to get into. There's a few stories that I need to catch up on. And I wanted to do that right here with you live on this incredible 4th of July, where we celebrate the birth of the United States of America as a proud citizen of the United States. I think that America is awesome. I think that it is the greatest country in the world. And despite all of its flaws, I do think America is that shining beacon on a hill that President Ronald Reagan referred to when he was in office. So, like I said, we've got a lot to get into. I really appreciate all of you who have joined me. Before we get into it, please remember to like this video, leave me a comment, tell me what you think, share it out to everyone, and I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscriptions and any and all subs I greatly appreciate. Sorry if I'm fumbling. This is live radio here, so I don't do a lot of, I do a lot of prep, obviously, for the topics, but I don't script. I find scripted live streams boring, and I don't want to do the Hassan Piker thing where I just put on someone else's, you know, content and then just stare at it, waiting for my mommy to bring me my chicken nuggets and my $1 million mansion. So this is a lot of fun. I always like doing these live streams, even though sometimes I stumble a little bit. They're always fun. And for those of you watching, are the levels okay on the microphone? Can you hear me okay? Let me know. Leave me a comment and tell me. I would appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube in the live chat, shoot me a message if my levels are okay. All right, so going right into the topic. We're going to start with some anime news. Now, everyone who knows me knows I like anime. I have publicly spat with conservative influencers over anime. I stand by all my words that I've said about it. And so I'm going to go and discuss it. First of all, Rising the Shield Hero Season 3. It's coming back according to Anime News Network, and I'm very excited about this. I loved season one. Season one of the Rising of the Shield Hero was fantastic. It was amazing. Kinema Citrus, I believe, is the company that produced it. They did a fantastic job. And season two, it was done by another company, Kinema Citrus. I think licensed out their licensing of the Rising of the Shield Hero light novels to another company, and they just kind of dropped the ball. The whole thing with the giant tortoise, that was kind of, I wasn't really happy with how that arc was adapted, but then I did like the other world. So it was one of those situations where it was half good, half bad. But Kinema Citrus is returning to do season 3 of the Rising of the Shield Hero. They're introducing some new characters. They're also in the manga and light novels. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be great. They're also, Mad Kid is returning to do the theme song, which I'm very excited about. They're a fantastic sort of Tokyo pop band. I think that they did a really good job on both the Japanese and the English theme song for season 1. They did a good job with season 2 as well, but season 1's theme was just so fantastic. And I'm really excited to see where this is going. According to Anime News Network, the anime had its world premiere at Anime Expo earlier. It says today. That's of the writing of this article, obviously. The anime will also have world tour premiere screenings in Paris, France, and Austin, Texas in July. Very cool. And that lists a couple other places. But it will appear fully in October, which I am waiting with bated breath. And more on that, we also got this big announcement that Crunchyroll, that they are having like a plethora of anime coming to their streaming service. Oh, we also heard that Crunchyroll got the rights to the One Piece dub ahead of the live action Netflix that Netflix is producing. I am not a One Piece fan, and all of the live action adaptations I've seen that Netflix has done based on anime have all been terrible. The Cowboy Bebop, I didn't even make it past the trailers. The trailers were terrible, and the actress playing Faye Valentine kind of being a jerk to the fans and making fun of them and stuff. It's just not a way to promote. Anyway, back to Crunchyroll. According to Anime News Network, they are going to be streaming The Apothecary Diaries, The Faraway Paladin, The Lord of Rust Mountain, Goblin Slayer Season 2. Goblin Slayer takes a lot of crap because of its pilot episode as well as the first chapter and in the manga and the first volume of the light novel. Personally, it's just a dark fantasy. It's not for children. Do not let your children engage with Goblin Slayer, but it's very mature. It's definitely for mature audiences, and I'm excited it's returning for season 2. The Kingdoms of Ruin. I'm not familiar with that one. I was reincarnated as the seventh prince, so I can take my time perfecting my magical ability. These long titles, man. Perfecting my magical ability. To be Hero X, bottom tier character, Tomazaki second stage, and Black Butler season. Well, it's the next season of Black Butler. I'm not a fan of Black Butler. I personally think that it's just not my cup of tea. I have a friend who it's one of his favorite anime. It's just not for me. It's just the way it is. But anyway, it's going to be a really good year for anime fans, including myself. Also being a comic book fan, I'm not really excited of what's coming down the pike as far as superhero movies and whatnot. I'm very disappointed with how both Marvel and DC has been handling their movies. And, hopefully, though, Marvel has had a lot of shakeups. So we're going to, it's starting to affect other companies as well. Like, for instance, one of one of the big headlines regarding the Disney company is they fired a Marvel executive named Victoria Alfonso, I think her name was. I mean, no disrespect. Let me know in the comments. But anyway, with her, she was the one who was really pushing for more, wokeness, that sort of, hyperizing of political correctness. She was really pushing for that to be in the Marvel films. That's why Ghost was gender swapped. That's why they were trying to change the name from the X-Men to the Mutants, things like that. She was a big influence on that. And she was fired. And hopefully with that, we'll see sort of a course correction for Marvel where we'll start to get back to their core principles. But it's not just happening at Marvel or Disney. This is from Bounding to Comics. It's starting to have an effect in the entertainment industry in general. After the Walt Disney Company canned diversity officer Latondra Newton, that was another person that Disney let go, Warner Brothers, Discovery, and Netflix lose their diversity heads. At the end of June, it was revealed that the Walt Disney Company's chief diversity officer, Latondra Newton, she was the one behind Reimagine Tomorrow, was no longer with the company. Now Warner Brothers, Discovery, and Netflix's have also seen their diversity heads leave their respective companies. Variety announced Newton had left the Walt Disney Company after they obtained an internal company memo on June 20th from the company's HR chief, Sonia Coleman. Coleman wrote in the memo, "I'm writing to share news that Latondra Newton has decided to leave the Walt Disney Company to pursue other endeavors." They go on to talk about Newton's career, her work with DEI and stuff. Following Newton's exit, the Wrap reported that Netflix head of inclusion strategy, Verna Myers, was stepped down from her position at the company in September. While she is exiting the company as head of inclusion strategy, she will still advise the company, albeit the report notes she'll be focused primarily on her consulting company, the Verna Myers Company. Unlike the Walt Disney Company, Netflix appears to have a replacement for Myers already lined up in Wade Davis. Davis is currently the vice president of inclusion strategy and worked under Myers for 4 years. Even though it does seem that they're replacing this person, this is a big deal. I remember watching Cameron Pashaw be interviewed, and he basically said that Hollywood has always had diversity officers, but they were just kind of there to please the media and whatnot. They were just there to kind of go to parties, go to political fundraisers, and to talk about things. And then all of a sudden they have all this power. So we've got, Reimagine Tomorrow happening. We've got race and gender swaps happening. And they actually started to have an effect on, content that was being made. But aside from Disney and Netflix, it's also Warner Brothers, right? At the end of June, Los Angeles Times reported that Warner Brothers Access Diversity leader Karen Horn, who was the company's vice president for diversity, equity, and inclusion in North America. So I think this is a big deal. I think that we're seeing a big shift in Hollywood where this is going to change things. Now, I don't think it'll. Hollywood has always been politically correct. They've always been in the pocket of the Democrat Party, but they've they've never were so blatant about their disrespect for middle America, for just the regular New Yorkers who aren't involved in politics, or the Californians who don't live in the big metropolitan areas. They've never been so brazen in their hatred. So instead of making movies and stuff that kind of appeal to the masses, the writers are writing movies for themselves. They're doing these self-insert characters. There's actually there have been accusations against Kathleen Kennedy, the head of Lucasfilm, who you know I'll more about that later, but where a lot of the characters that she puts in her films, so like in Willow or in the Disney sequel trilogy or in Indiana Jones, she always has like this bratty British woman who's supposed to be her self-insert character. And so instead of appealing to the audiences, she wants to see herself as, the hero who lectures the real heroes over their privilege and all this. It's utter nonsense, and no one wants to see that. And it's a shame too, because it's not that necessarily, it's not bad to have a female action hero or whatnot, but when they're like smug and lecturing to, the main hero of the story, kind of like, Rey, she has to help Luke Skywalker, be a better Jedi, even though he's been a better Jedi than her, she could ever hope to be in the previous films and as well as in the Holocron. But no, we've got to have Wonder Wet Ray be the bestest ever and accomplish things. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And hopefully now with these firings, the diversity officer will go back to being more, in the background. Now, obviously, Lucasfilms, their president is the diversity officer. I'm joking about that, but seriously, it's pretty bad. But it's not just having an effect in the film industry; it's also having an effect in the corporate press, which I'm excited about. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a huge critic of the corporate press. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle they are perceived on. I find that a lot of the corporate press has been corrupted, and that they only align in special interests. They're not interested in being the fourth estate, where they sort of hold powers, to account. In fact, they seem beholden to those powers. And just speaking of entertainment news, cbr.com. Now, just so you understand, cbr.com used to be the gold standard for nerd news, basically. Comicbookresources.com, cbr.com, that was the place you would go to find out information on comic books that were being released, on comic book films that were being released. It was that place. And over time, they got into that politically correct woke mindset, and they started publishing silly articles about 10 reasons why Rey is better than Luke Skywalker, and a bunch of nonsense, just kissing the boots of like Disney and Warner Brothers so they can get access. I think Nerdrotic always calls them the access media. That's a very astute, a very astute um, way of looking at it. I always call them the corporate press because they're controlled by corporate overlords. Ironically, a lot of these companies are owned by the same film company. So like ABC News, did you know it was owned by Disney? Maybe you did. But yeah, that's a major film corporation owning a news outlet and controlling it. Warner Brothers Discovery owns CNN and HLN. That's why they're so biased. Fox Corp owns Fox News, and I'm not saying there's no good people there, but the sort of more I'm going to tell you my opinion, and it's right because I've got a journalism degree from Cornell University. That sort of attitude, um, instead of speaking truth to power or to report the truth, that sort of attitude that my position as a journalist is more important than yours, the viewer, just absolutely silly. And it's happening where a lot of these news organizations are laying off people. ESPN had to lay off anchors. So not even the the little interns that they start with. They're actually firing anchors. CBR, they are actually um, starting to have shakeups at the company. So this is according to bleedingfool.com, not that other nerd site you're thinking of, bleedingfool.com. Comic Book Resources, also known as CBR, was founded by Jonah Wayland in 1995 and became a collection of blogs dedicated to academic and detailed comic book related discussions. Everything was great until 2016 when Valnet Inc., a Canadian based company which also owns Screen Rant, bought the site and relaunched it as CBR.com, integrating the blog into the site. It did not take long for the new owners to learn that they could get more views with clickbait than actual news. And they give an example: 10 reasons Captain Marvel is the best Avengers, and 10 other reasons why it's Miss Marvel. So you contradict yourself in that title. Within a year, CBR brought on writer and activist Kieran Shiok, who soon began publicly attacking creators online, such as DC Comics artist Ethan Van Sciver, accusing him of being a not Nazi bad guy from World War II, based on art associated with the villain Van Sciver had drawn. Shiak wasn't joking; he meant it, and began demanding that DC Comics fire their longtime artist. And then they have screenshots of Kieran talking about Ethan Van Sciver, calling him names, and talking about how a villain was made to look like the bad guy from World War II. Okay, yeah, a villain. You want the villain to look scary. I don't know what the problem is here. In response, Van Sciver denounced the claims, calling them evil, adding that these people who spread these images and claim that I'm a Nazi are liars. They are lying flat out. They are liars who wish the industry wasn't tolerant of people who do not share their partisan political views. They talk a little bit more about Shiak and more of the controversy he calls, and they say, and when they weren't attacking comic book companies or comic creators, CBR would attack the fandom themselves. For instance, here's an article on how Marvel's golden boy, Steve Rogers, only decided to become Captain America for selfish desires. This is bait. And they have a screenshot. Steve Rogers wasn't a hero for becoming Captain America. He was selfish. Geez, what a terrible thing to say. They did delete that article, and it goes on. And it was it's very interesting how those outlets do that to the very fans who they expect to read, right? It doesn't It's so weird to me. Fast forward to this summer, and now reckoning seems to be taking place at CBR. Beginning in May of this year, the company began to undergo a major staffing upheaval, first reported by Pop versus Graham McMillan. According to McMillan, also no friend of the same indie publishers and creators, CBR's now former editor-in-chief Adam Swiderski announced via LinkedIn that my time at CBR has come to a close as I was laid off by Valnet this morning. And it says they talk about him a little bit, and they said, but the firings weren't done. Even more high-level editors at CBR will let go over the Memorial Day holiday. Within 4 weeks, CBR would not only let go over 3/4 of the editorial staff, but lose their HR team and a substantial amount of like-minded staffers who voluntarily left in solidarity. While ideologues in the industry and access media like Millen were clutching their pearls, the biggest question on their minds and ours was the line from that eternal memo that CBR was undergoing major structural changes relating to corner on both culture and performance, which mentioned that there would be more focus on individuals who can create a more positive culture going forward. Yeah, right. That's what I've got to say to that. It's so sad because, like I said, CBR used to be the gold standard. Places like Newsarama was where you would go to try to find information. Screen Rant. And then these big corporations like Valnet, they swoop in, they fire all the real talent and bring in a bunch of people who have a big Tumblr blog or have a big Facebook page and have them write, and they just spread this vitriol. And it's obvious that they don't know about the characters they're writing about, or they just looked at the Wikipedia page. I remember there was a article on CBR that I shared a while ago where they were putting the top 10 Thor costumes, and they were very specific in the article that they were talking about Thor Odin's son. So what ended up happening was they put a costume in it that was not from Thor Odin's son. It was from an alternative Thor. Briefly, Thor Odin's son was killed off in the comics, and a human, I can't remember his name, but he was worthy enough to lift Mjolnir, and so whenever he would lift the hammer, he would turn into like basically Thor. He would get Thor's costume, his hammer, and stuff. And he had an alternative name when Thor Odin's son returned. He took on the identity of Thunderstrike and was given his own hammer by Odin for honoring the legacy of Thor, and he became Thunderstrike. They actually had his Thunderstrike costume as one of them. So it wasn't Thor Odin's son. And, they were mocked rightly. They kind of doubled down and say, oh, it was just, a thing. I've done costume list before. I just recently did a top 10 best Superman outfits. And if it was from an alternate universe or a different person posing as Superman, I always make a note of it. So, that way it's very specific to that article. But, CBR not doing that. And as a result of them spitting in the face of fans, as a result of them doing this, they're being shut down. And this is a broader point about what is happening in the entertainment industry. We're seeing these shifts, these ebbs and curves where CNN is doing so terrible that Warner Brothers Discovery is considering selling them off. Who would buy them? Who would pick them up? What would it be? Because no matter where it goes, it will always be CNN, HLN, right? Which used to be CNN too. And then, what about CNN International? The brand of CNN has become so charged. The brand of MSNBC has become so charged. The brand of Fox News has become so charged. And I think it's really interesting, apart from what we're seeing, I think that we're going to have more of this. We're going to see more shifts in the media landscape. And at first, it'll just be friends buying their buddies' companies and downsizing them maybe. But I honestly think that the rise of independent media cannot be stopped. We've seen Megyn Kelly go off on her own with Devil May Care Media, which produces her podcast, The Megyn Kelly Show, which I enjoy a great deal. I love seeing Megyn Kelly be this independent person. We're seeing this with, Jeremy from the Quartering. He's launching thepublica.com. I think he's doing it with Sydney Watson. It's a good little, I don't mean little to be disparaging. I just mean it's a good little fish in a pond full of big fish. And that changing landscape is exactly what we need. We need to have more competition in the media landscape. It can't just be the big five anymore. We're going to need something to change how the news is reported because it's become so biased, and it opens up this big broad door where people can be fooled by the silliest of things. I remember growing up in the church world, there was the story that I heard this speaker tell one time, and it was about the original drummer of the Beatles, is what he said. And he tells the story about how after their first initial tour, how this drummer he he left the Beatles, and when Ringo, or excuse me, before Ringo came along, right? So he left, and they tell the story that Lennon and Paul McCartney and George Harrison came to him and like begged him to come back, but his girlfriend like blocked the door and said, "Get away! He's got a good job. He's actually going places. He works at a factory now." And then right after that, they brought on Ringo, and they got their big record deal, and they became the Beatles, and Beatlemania happened. Only problem is that story isn't true. The original drummer of the Beatles let's see. I'm going to try to find his name real quick. Original drummer for the Beatles before. Okay, Pete Best was his name. Guy named Pete Best. So Pete Best, he didn't become a factory worker. He became a golden album winning record producer. It was a lie. It was just one of those internet rumors that this preacher man, who I don't think he was being malicious in telling this lie, I think he just heard it online, but he spread it to, to make a point. Do you know how many of students like me who heard that guy say that rumor? When we found out the truth, how do you think that made us feel? Well, that's how the media works. It's a game of telephone. So they report on a story and maybe they leave out a key detail. So it shifts where it is. Or maybe it's the way they present the story, right? It's how they tell it, and it gives a certain bias. We need to get and by the way, there's nothing wrong with commentary. My vidcast, that's all it is. It's commentary. I don't break news. I just read it and then respond to it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know I watch a gazillion other opinion based YouTube channels and TV shows. Nothing wrong with that. The problem is if I was to come on and tell you a bit of news and then say that's not, and but it was very opinionated, like if I was to say I went for a walk and I saw a dog in the front yard with a leash. Okay, that is a factual shit statement. I did see a dog who was leashed up in his front yard. But then if I was to say, but the dog looked aggressive, maybe the dog was just like, but then I say he looked aggressive. Well, that's my opinion. That's not news. But that's how all of these major news networks report, and it creates distrust or mistrust in the viewers, the very viewers they're trying to relay the information to. And I just think that, like, for instance, we always hear about Australia's big, firearm buyback program. Well, do you know now that gun ownership in Australia is at the same levels that it was when the buyback program happened? So it wasn't successful. It's right back to where they started. And, Australia is basically a dictatorship now, along with France and Germany and New Zealand. And, you know, but the press doesn't report on all the things. Do you know how hard it was when the Australian government was sending out jackboots to beat up protesters during the lockdown? Do you know how hard it was to find that information? Because none of the major news networks, even internationally, were reporting it. Independent press was finding out what was going on. And I think we're going to get more back, we're going to get back to a place where we're going to start looking for more independent sources and maybe go to a place like CNN and Fox News to get like maybe a broader look at what is going on. But it's not just happening with comic book press or the movie press. It's happening with just the corporate press in general, and I do think it's time for a change. All right, moving on from that. So all of these movies that have been coming out lately have been bombing at the box office, right? We with the exception of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, we saw Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania failed at the box office. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 failed at the box office. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny failed at the box office. In fact, here's from notthebee.com. We told you it was looking bad for Indy's new feminist romp, and boy, were we right. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny did a belly flop from 10,000 feet this weekend at the Mickey Mouse's Lucasfilm, as the Mickey Mouse's Lucasfilm killed the last piece of intellectual property that it hadn't yet destroyed. The movie only made $130 million total on opening weekend, a holiday weekend, no less. That's $60 million domestically and $70 million internationally against a budget of more than $300 million, including marketing. This is less than half of the $272 million that the subpar Kingdom of Crystal Skull pulled in back in 2008. Okay, yes, we all knew that this was going to happen. For one thing, For one thing, it was always going to be, we knew it was going to be bad news when Steven Spielberg dropped out. Now, I haven't seen the movie yet, so I'm not going to comment on whether I think it's a bad movie. I can speculate based on the trailer that it looks terrible, but I'm not going to say a definite it's terrible. But here's the thing. No one likes Phoebe Waller-Bridge. After Fleabag, she has inserted herself, or Hollywood has inserted her, into several properties like Solo: A Star Wars Story, and it was a disaster. And same for Indiana Jones. I knew Indiana Jones was in trouble when Steven Spielberg left. Now what I'm about to tell you is rumor, so I'm entering the rumor zone right now. Apparently, the original idea for the Indiana Jones 5 was that Mutt, Indiana Jones' son, was going to be grown up, and so it wouldn't be Shia LaBeouf playing him. The rumor was that they were looking at Chris Pratt. And what was going to happen was Mutt's character, and he was going to find something and convince his father to go on a father-son Indiana Jones adventure. But no, we can't have that. Now, again, that's just a rumor, but speculating that it's true, Kathleen Kennedy came along and said, no, we can't have that. We can't have a male hero anymore. It's got to be a woman. So then they brought on this Phoebe Waller-Bridge to play his goddaughter, and they killed off Mutt. And so Waller-Bridge's character, now this is just going by reviews I've read. She lectures Indiana Jones. She's condescending to him, and I guess she punches him out at one point in the film. No one wants to see that. And I hate to say this, but Harrison Ford is too old to play those kinds of roles. He really needs to take a step back and do more methodical drama films because he's a fantastic actor, but he's just too old for those big action movies. And no shade, I feel the same way about my hero Chuck Norris. He has decided to quietly retire, and he makes television appearances occasionally, but he's you know still, in my opinion, the greatest of the 80s action stars. That's just my opinion. I know there's a lot of fans out there, but I would like to see him. And there are some exceptions to that. Sylvester Stallone, he's a really good actor, and is obviously still making action movies, but he presents himself in a way that's still in shape. Same with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and like I said, Chuck Norris. Now, Chuck Norris, like I said, he's quietly decided to retire and make TV appearances. Harrison Ford is still active, but he's broken ribs. He's gotten hurt even worse off than that, and he keeps trying to take on these action roles, but he's not like an Arnold or a Stallone or a Norris. He did that really well, but like I said, he would be better in methodical dramas and whatnot. And again, nothing wrong with him as an actor. He's a fantastic actor, but I just think that he needs to move on from action roles, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. So that's just my opinion. I think that he should utilize the skills that he has. So, but what's a movie that did really well at the box office? That's right. The Angel Studios film Sound of Freedom, which stars Jim Caviezel. And it has done incredibly well. The pre-sale tickets for it have been phenomenal. And it's a story that Hollywood refuses to tell, which is the dangers of human trafficking. So this is according to the Post Millennial. Pre-sales for Angel Studios' Sound of Freedom have skyrocketed to $10 million ahead of the film's July 4th opening across 2,600 locations. According to Deadline, the studio is spotting a 6-day, $20 million start, which is extremely impressive for a non-major studio adult thriller. And over 1 million tickets have been bought for the based on a true story film, following a former Homeland Security agent, played by Jim Caviezel, who rescues abducted children from around the world. It's based on the story of Operation Underground Railroad. It's fantastic. It's a small indie film made on a small budget, and it is blowing these high octane blockbusters out of the water. Comparatively, obviously, it's made 20 million against its budget, which is still a profit for it. Meanwhile, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is not. Elementals is not. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania did not. The Flash did not. This is a really cool moment where a small indie film has captured the imagination of the populace. I haven't seen it yet. I do have a ticket. I'm going to go see it soon, so you'll be able to read my review of it on StudioJakeMedia.com. That being said, I'm still so psyched about it. I think that this is important stories that Hollywood does need to tell, but they won't tell it. So this independent studio, Angel Studios, which also does the Wing Feather Saga, which is superb animation, by the way, they have done an amazing job with it, and I look forward. Angel Studios is definitely rising. I hope we see more stuff from them. I would like to see them do even more with what is going on and try to capture the public's imagination with their storytelling in the cinema. All right, so I'm going to, my last topic of the day, I wanted to talk about this new Icica that is coming out. So Warner Brothers Studios is partnering with the Japanese animation studio Wit Studio, which was behind The Ancient Magus' Bride Season 1, the first few seasons of Attack on Titan, and currently Spy X Family. They are partnering with Warner Brothers, specifically their Japanese division, to produce a new anime film called Suicide Squad Icica. This is from BatmanNews.com. During this week's Anime Expo 2023, Warner Brothers Japan and Wit Studios unveiled their new Suicide Squad-based anime called Suicide Squad Icica. The story follows Batman foes Harley Quinn, the Joker, and other DC villains as they find themselves in a violent fantasy world. Of course, the word Icica itself refers to the popular genre of fish out of water or someone in another world. Fiction taking place in a different world. Some of the creative team include Hiroyuki Omaru, who was behind Batman Ninja, Era Asada, Tape Nakatsuki, Eiji Yumahara, Akira Amano, and more. During the panel, attendees got to see several concept art images and a short preview announcement teaser drawn by Akira Amano. As of now, only the teaser is officially released alongside several statements from Anime Expo 2023 and the official website. So I watched the trailer. You briefly see a Killer Croc-looking creature, but otherwise it primarily focuses on Joker and Harley Quinn. Amanda Waller has a really brief appearance in the anime. Now, I hope this one turns out good because sometimes when Warner Brothers partners with an anime studio, it doesn't come out that great. Like, for instance, Catwoman Hunted, an anime studio was behind that, but Warner Brothers just maintained total control over that project. And as a result, we just got kind of an atypical, Warner Brothers animated feature. It wasn't really anything special. So the anime didn't really help the film out. They could have animated in CGI and it still would have not been as good as it was. But with this one, though, it seems like what studio is controlling the project at least. So hopefully this one will be good because I really actually kind of enjoyed Batman Gotham Knights. I kind of enjoyed Batman Ninja. My only problem with Batman Ninja is I felt the ending was just way over the top. It was just way, 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 way over the top. But I did like it. I thought it was a fun movie, and I really hope that whatever the case may be, I do hope that this film is good. It's good to see Joker and Harley together again. I know that a few SJWs on Twitter were throwing a hissy fit because they're like, "Oh, Joker's abusive. It's an abusive relationship." Joker, yeah, they're villains, right? Joker is a serial killer. Harley Quinn is a serial killer. Of course, the relationship is going to be abusive. I'm so tired of that nonsense about, Joker brainwashing Harley Quinn, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, he did pull her into his world, but she went willingly. All versions of the character seduction, when Joker seduces Harley Quinn, it's all just him playing to her ego, reeling her in, and then they get in sort of this relationship. And yes, he does treat her poorly because he's a villain. Of course, he's supposed to treat her poorly. That's what villains do. They're bad guys. And actually same with Poison Ivy. A lot of the people really pushing the Harley Quinn Poison Ivy relationship forget Poison Ivy was just as abusive to Harley Quinn as the Joker was in the early days of that relationship. Now it's kind of changed because DC Comics wants to virtue signal, but I am excited to see Harley and the Joker together again. I really think that they are a good Bonnie and Clyde sort of comic book, version of them. I will say I'm not always fond of Batman movies without Batman. For instance, there there was a film that came out that was called Batman Assault on Arkham. I don't know why they called it Batman Assault on Arkham. Batman's role in the film was incredibly minor. It should have been called Suicide Squad Assault on Arkham, but that's a nitpicky thing. Whatever the case may be, though, I'm going to give this movie the benefit of the doubt since I know what studio is behind it. They're incredibly talented. They do sometimes tend to take on more than they can chew. That's why they lost the rights to H.M. Magus' Bride. That's why they lost the rights to Attack on Titan, is they were taking too long to develop the seasons after the first one. So, but anyway, I still hope it's good because I do think they have some of the best animators around, some of the best directors. You can see that with Spy X Family. So hopefully they can hold on to Spy X Family because that seems to be like their flagship production right now. But anyway, that's all the time I have for today. There is one thing I wanted to say just in conclusion, that happy 4th of July. If you are from another country, I hope you think your country is the greatest country in the world. For me, I think America is the greatest country in the world. I think the United States of America has done more good than bad. Certainly, the United States has done bad, but despite all of its flaws, the United States still stands by its principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think that that is fantastic. I love to see it. I still have hope for America. I know that it's a struggle right now. The economy is kind of in the tank. Um, there's we're stuck in a quagmire in Europe, and there's homeless epidemic, there's addiction epidemic. But I think that America is strong. I think we will bounce back, no matter who the president is. I think that America will bounce back. I think we will have a good economy. We will get help for the people who are, being bamboozled by big pharma. We will find a solution to the homeless population. And I hope that all my fellow Americans will join with me in celebrating today with hot dogs and fireworks, dessert, and so much more. And that's all the time I have, actually. But I would like to say thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Again, I would like to just stress that I hope that you will like this video, that you will share it out, that you'll leave me a comment and tell me what you think. Subscribe. Help me reach that 1,000 subscriber goal. I hope that you'll follow me on Twitter at RealJakeberry, Instagram at RealJakeberry, Facebook is StudioJake Media, and my website is StudioJakeMedia.com. If you would like to support my channel, head on over to my locals. I publish all my content there, as well as some exclusive stuff, including my original stories. So if you would like to support me and my independent outlet here, you can head over to StudioJakeMedia.locals.com. You can join. It's just a few dollars a month, and I would really appreciate that. All of you have been fantastic. I think you are wonderful. So I hope to see you next time right here on Studio Jake.